Sally met a rabbit man who can speak a little bit of human language, and it was called Frau. It was not a monster but a rabbit man. It at least thanked Sally for feeding it carrots. Frau also wanted to follow her because it had nowhere to go. Sally was aware that she seemed to have hooked up with a strange one, but she had no choice but to let her follow her into the village. However, the people of the village appeared prejudiced against immortals. They would take advantage of the chance to sneak into the village because there was nobody to guard the entrance. They encountered a man carrying carrots, and when Frau became irate, and the man noticed that she was hungry, he also invited them home. In fact, he was the landowner of this territory. This land had long been plagued by monsters, but a traveler had saved the entire village. Hearing that, Sally immediately guessed that it was Miko. Generally, from then, this village was very fond of travelers. Sally admitted that the notion of being immortal and a traveler amused them as well, but she recognized that Frau wasn't a nasty person. The following day, someone yelled that a monster had appeared. When Sally saw the creature, she had a similar feeling to the one she had the day before, when she was helpless and Frau had jumped out to kill it. Although they were saved, the villagers still regard Frau frightening. Sally and Frau were sent away and encountered the Knight of the Limb Core by chance. There were certain questions he wanted to ask, so they were brought away, and the captain uncuffed them and introduced himself as Gra. Everyone considered the immortals as monsters. He witnessed how Frau protected Sally, and that was also Gra's ideal. Then they were released, and he insisted that two of them were innocent. If there was a problem, he would be responsible for that. The other two laid to protest because they couldn't eat or drink. After that, Gra took them to a restaurant where Sally noticed the squid was immediately haunted. Meanwhile, Meki and Seto, two demons, were outside the castle. Meki then began to attack and blew in front of Sally. The small body would contract after the attack, however, and would need time to heal. Sally moved forward like a soulless person when Seto went to slaughter the soldiers until Frau summoned her, telling Sally to hide while she fought Seto alone. She battled while everyone was fleeing, but the assault was insignificant to him. Sally gave her encouragement at the point when she was on the verge of losing. Frau was still alive after the hit, and Sally's body felt it again. Her small body beginning to heat up. Sally was knocked out. Seto's hand vanished, and he was replaced by someone else with bright pink eyes as he delivered the killing blow. Episode 2. Meki was seated by the stump and assumed Seto must be playing very joyfully. However, when he noticed that someone was behind him and that the tree had been split in two by Melia's sword line, he realized that Sally had delivered the blow and was currently recovering. Before killing, he would wait for Maki to get better. Now, Seto also saw that Sally was a tough opponent to overcome. In fact, Maki assaulted the castle on purpose. She viewed people as the enemies of nature because of the extensive environmental harm caused by its buildings, but in reality, it was just anger over losing land. Conflicts were common since the two sides did not generally get along. Maki was determined to defeat the monster hunter at any cost, and Seto began striking him with his strongest blow. Meki regained himself despite being cut in half since it was a fairy skill, and this skill was internally developed to be one with nature. Meki might have had as much time as possible with his fairy power, but with just a projectile, her eyes had been utterly shattered. Sally was allegedly broken after the cannon demon attack, according to Seto. As the young man comprehended and pinned his own feet to the ground, Meki was still secure, even though she had just taken the final blow of the cannon demon. She was Miko, and used a sword to defeat Meki. Sally also defeated Seto. In reality, Miko simply needed Meki's horn to make her magically powerless. Sally woke up in the late afternoon, and Gar was standing next to her. Gar pulled out a sword from next to the monster's corpse, and it belonged to Sally. Outside, everyone regarded Fra as an icon since two people assisted this country in destroying a monster. Gar led them to Maki, and he planned to murder her while she slept just in case, so Gra departed and shut the door. Meki was questioned who she was, and she replied irritably that she was going to claim to be asleep in an effort to feel better, but she hadn't seen anything. Meki then attempted to attack Frau, but the attack failed miserably. This scene made Sally feel cute rather than terrified. Looking back, she realized Miko's intentions with her. As Sally first heard Miko's name, she was intrigued since it felt like she knew her. Later, when Meki began to describe what had happened, Sally was relieved that Miko was around. Sally warned her not to divulge her identity or she would be executed. Meki didn't want to live any longer because she had no power. The door was open with just a kick after Sally gave Frau the command to flee. Meki was invited to go along with them, even though she didn't comprehend what they were up to, and even though she was going with them, she wouldn't be friends with them. By the time Gar began to pursue, one of his teammates had vanished in front of him. Episode 3. Gar had only won one match, but he was sure he would triumph in the bar martial arts competition. Gar understood that winning the competition was not the most important thing. Rather, the primary factor was a man's desire to be a strong individual. Meki had no regard for people and saw them as nothing more than insects to be crushed. However, she had a superior understanding of the human heart. As soon as Sally hurriedly raced away, she called Miko, who quickly got her some water while apologizing for her current financial difficulties. In fact, he had already spent all of his money on food for Mila. Thus, he ran out of money for his rent after just one meal. Mila would join the martial arts bar tournament since she needed the money. The summoning battle had been planned by the demon god Juice, and after that, they would have a brief meeting with the demon guild. When a hand was raised, the demons in the circle started to rise. This was a gathering of demons from all over, and the demon guild meeting got underway from there. The devil's territory was now shrinking due to Momo, and this was also an issue they would discuss. They believed it to be a superstar, but it was actually a regular person. Momo had strength comparable to that of an entire nation. Seto had been killed, and the Oni clan would soon be wiped out. Though the Oni clan banded together, it was unlikely that they could defeat him. The fact that Meki had likewise been defeated astounded them all. The Oni's might and honor had been crushed. Beginning to become angry, the demon boy vowed to kill Momo. When the meeting came to a conclusion, Owl was quite upset to see himself lowered and transformed into Juice's mount. After she went, the Demon Emperor started to smile dangerously. But the Central Demon Emperor dared not to speak because he assumed the Demon Emperor had other plans. The next day, Juice announced that he was seeking for Sume with Gar, and because he wouldn't ignore it, he invited her to accompany them. She requested to become friends with him once he introduced things. If he became her buddy, he could have everything he desired, whether it was endless life or unlimited money. Gar flicked at her, claiming that they weren't friends, and explaining what friends were to her. Juice was conversing when Sume arrived. Juice made friends with Gar because he wanted to get close to people. He begged Juice to support him since he knew he was a swordsman who had just joined the guild. In actuality, it was Al who had killed Gar's other guild members. Sume now wanted to befriend Gar with this murderer. Gar began to enter the ring, and Juice came to cheer him up. Sume began to meet Sally and claimed to be her ally. He was aiming for human and Oni peace. Miko hurried forward and urged Sally to back off. He made a deal with Sally's combo, and he could get Oni and humans to live together. Miko would not accept, and also offered her cooperation. Episode 4. In the past, even if the city was created, it could not withstand the monsters, and during the stalemate, there was a traveler. When the princess saw Miko, she told him to save her so she could leave the castle and find employment as a traveler. She then hid on the side and managed to get by the guards. Even more so when it was revealed that Miko was a wanderer. She went on to identify herself as the princess of this realm before they hurried off to buy food. Since then, Sally had a vendetta against octopuses, despite the fact that he appeared to be fairly beloved by the populace. Miko ate a full lunch in the evening and had to tell Sally about her travels. According to her reviews, this was a tranquil country. Sally didn't want to stay there for the rest of her life, despite how great it was. The following morning, when she went to Miko's room, she found him changing. Sally was astonished to realize that he was a male but smaller than her. She didn't understand how Miko could travel despite being so thin. The princess planned to accompany him, but he warned her that she might die. And Oni went to the king to ask for permission to take over the realm. He demanded that 30 people be offered as sacrifices each month, and that a soldier would be killed even by a single blow. However, as soon as he left, he met Miko by mistake, causing him to make a decision. He fled, but Miko saw him and quietly left. When the princess went back to the palace, her father decided to allow her to leave. Sally had never before seen the horrors outdoor. When she noticed it, her body started to react. Miko then started to approach them, and the princess told him to flee. As soon as he began to strike, Miko drew his sword and one of his arms flew off. Then a lad in a peach with a sword glides like Yasuo. With each glide, he slew a demon, and with the final one, he unveiled himself and killed him. Sally did not believe it could be this bad, even if she was aware that this was a righteous scene to destroy evil. He left and Sally was about to follow, but she scented the Oni corpses and couldn't get through. In retrospect, it was true that she only entangled them. After a month, the kingdom was at peace once more. She had a recurring thought about Miko, so she cut off her hair and set out on her adventure. Episode 5. There were stories of blood-sucking demons appearing in the city. All bodies died dry after having their blood drained out, and each one of their necks had teeth. When they encountered the group of anti-immortals inside the city, Sally was unable to utilize her powers against them. Instead, she could only use it against the Oni. After some time, they came upon a hostel. But they were only worried that the immortals would not let Tibi remain, because Grau's title did not apply to the region outside the suburban town. He meant that Frau should avoid him for a time, but Sally refused. Frau accepted and said he would go shopping for a while. Meki also came with him. Frau was going to get a coat to cover his ears, but she forgot about it when she saw carrots. However, when the boss arrived to disperse them and discriminate, Frau remained patient. Gra also observed that Meki was not one to remain composed when Frau was treated unfairly. Sally would go in search of them just in case. Frau didn't object, because she was accustomed to Meki being unhappy about the incident this morning while she was on the riverbank. She spoke of Sally, and Meki noticed that Sally had dreadful powers. Additionally, she assumed that Sally was on the side of humans, and it was Sally's power that killed Seto. Meki remembered the demon bloodbath and deduced who was responsible, and he could help her. Sally ran into the octopus once more while searching for those two people. Meki went to talk to the demon blood about it. Frau then suddenly emerged and started to assault, but her blows to the demon blood were still too weak. He caught Frau and split her body in half, and Sally arrived just in time to see it. With just one punch, he had to spit blood, and he started using it to push her to the ground. He was about to use a demon cannon when Meki interrupted, saying that Sally was her teammate and that she didn't want her to die. In heaven, Frau ran across Artora again. Due to the fact that she cannot be revived, Frau was reincarnated. She used her actual form and a part of her upper body to defeat the opponent in a single movement. He recalled a time when he was a human and met the true love of his life. The days he spent with her made him so happy that he forgot about what his instincts were. But one day, he accidentally killed his beloved and was unable to do anything. Because he had forgotten his instincts, he was quite jealous of Meki. Episode 6. After Frau regained consciousness, Artora revealed to her what had transpired, stating that she had been watching her from the moment she sent her back. She fainted after the battle, so her teammates carried her to sleep there. She started to absorb Frau's extra energy, and when she did, the Grog was quite astonished to see her in her previous form. Sally decided to buy carrots down the street instead of medicine, because it was possible that they would speed her recovery. When Meki asked Sally if she had slain Seto, Sally admitted it was her. Meki confronted the salesman who bullied Frau yesterday at the same time, and she beat him up for being so bold to do so. Once Meki realized what kind of person Sally was, she felt much more at ease, as the two of them talked and walked together. The blood demon questioned Artora about Frau, as he watched his corpse burn because he could see that Frau was unique, and more like an Oni than an immortal. And he wondered why it lived in the realm of humans. Time was running out, but no one had responded. Artora started to chant a spell, which caused him to fear. Meki also inquired what Frau was, but she was satisfied with simply knowing that they were friends. Meki mentioned that after Sally punched someone, Gra threatened to drag him into the prison. In the forest, Miko was wondering when he noticed movement and hurried outside. It turned out to be a nun, which shocked him. She was even more alarmed when she spotted a talking dog that introduced itself as Mila and requested her to join her for dinner. After eating and sleeping, Miko realized that it was an Oni. But with the help of the other dog, Miko was able to coax him away. Mila could accompany him to the city he offered, but he wouldn't be held accountable for anything that happened after that. The next day, she was assaulted by an Oni, which Miko took it down, but the dog reported that there were still 10 to 20 of them hanging around. They appeared to be Oni rather than monsters. Mila instantly remembered something when Oni mentioned a tree, and they walked a bit and came across a town. There was an Oni demon standing up and said that it was ordered to arrest Mila. Speaking of demons, Mila remembered more about Oni trees, and she also remembered that she was a demon. Miko waited nearby, yawning a little since he was a little bored, and he would not take part in this. Mila was harder than he imagined, so he was going to cut her into 2 pieces. When she was about to die, she drew her own horn in order to become human, and was saved by Miko. She fainted due to blood loss, and regained consciousness when she found herself in the room. It appeared that Miko had saved her. They talked with each other as usual and laughed again.